Today I want to take you through the process of combining the custom movement system from the Unreal Marketplace. It's a little bit of a unique climbing system. It uses predefined points you climb up, so you can set ledges, you can set points, and then set what points it can move from and to. So maybe you want to only allow it to go one specific direction. You could do that with this system. The other part of it is Advanced Locomotion, which was free on the free monthly giveaway a couple months ago now. And so a lot of people will have this, but they may not have the custom movement system. It's currently $24.99. If you find it interesting, hopefully this will be useful for you and you can run to the market and pick up a copy. I also want to thank Ben Lewis, my lead level designer, and Dave Baker, one of my modelers, who helped make this scene for this video. And this is a beautiful scene they put together. What we're going to be doing is making it so we can climb up these rocks. If you are interested in supporting this channel, if you want to get notifications of future videos, for instance, future tutorials, I would encourage you to go through and click the bell, subscribe, everything you need to do here on YouTube. You can also join the Discord server, which is in the link in the description right below here. And that's something where people throughout the week are giving each other helpful suggestions on Unreal Engine or game design, whatever topic may come up in there. Also, it's got a lot of developers in there that are just interested in making games. Also, I have my Patreon if you want to help purchase future assets that I can do tutorials on. I don't have every asset in the store, and there's some that I like to do, but I haven't purchased them yet. So you becoming a patron helps to do that. So let's go and get started on this. First, install both. So you need to go to your Unreal Engine launcher, the Epic launcher, and we will choose custom movement. So get that installed somewhere, open up the project, and you should see something like this. This is the default project for custom movement. Let's show really quickly what it does. So you see these ledges that determines hand and foot placement as you climb up. You also have these points, so you can do various types of grabs. You could say I don't want you to go certain directions, and it would limit whether or not you could go between two. You could say I only want to go one direction, so you can go up and not down, or like here I can't go down to that one, but I could go to the right and go around to it, and I can't go up to it. But if I wanted to, I could set in here to allow it to go to that one but not let me drop down. So it's fairly customizable in that way. So to begin, right click on custom movement and let's do migrate. I'm going to select all the files, and that's fine. Then you'll need to go ahead and find the scene that you're wanting to move it into. I'm doing the one that I had set up for this, but if you have an ALS project that you want to put this into, find that project in your browser, select it, and go to the content folder. When you're in the content folder for that, go ahead and hit select folder. It's going to copy all those files to the other project. So now you'll see I have custom movement here. And let's go ahead and get started on cleaning up some of the things from custom movement to allow it to work with ALS. So you can see I have Advanced Locomotion v3. I'm just going to hit play in here really quick. Now I do have a different mesh for the character, but this is pretty much mainly just Advanced Locomotion here with a custom mesh for a character. So what we'll do is we need to go into custom movement, and we need to open up the level settings, because there is in here, we do have some settings for referring to the existing character that is for custom movement. And we don't want to do that. We want to go through and swap it out so that it's not using any of the existing information. And in the demo map, it will use ALS and not this temporary one that they have created. So to begin with, let's go ahead and open up the skeleton. Just take a peek if there's anything unique about it. Anytime you're doing a merge, you want to check this. See anything in particular It has the rig set as humanoid, which is what we want, because you won't be able to, if you're doing a retarget, for instance, so that maybe there were things in here that are custom that you wanted to apply to the ALS skeleton, you would then need to make sure that humanoid's set and you could do a retarget. However, we don't need to do that. What we're going to do instead is hit delete on this UE4 mannequin skeleton under custom movement. Hit the drop down and choose the ALS mannequin skeleton. Now hit replace. And then hit save. So that's going to go through and all those animations are now using that skeleton. I'm going to do something a little bit different here because for me, I have that custom mesh. And so I need to use a little bit different setting here, but you'll see here I have my skeleton and then I have that custom mesh. This one will be for you probably the default UE4 mannequin that comes with pretty much every generic project. This doesn't matter though. I'm just going to copy the name here and go back here. And you will see on yours, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and go back to custom movement, meshes under characters. Yours will look like this SK mannequin. If you hit the drop down, you can choose the ALS mannequin. That would be here by default. I've deleted mine, so I'm going to choose that mesh that I have for my custom character. All right, I'm going to right click on meshes and choose fix up redirectors. It's going to fix all the linking to the various animations and files that we're referring to that mesh, which is just fine. We want to do that. Okay, hit save all. Select that physics asset. Go ahead and delete there, and it should let you delete it. One more fix up redirectors before I delete the meshes folder. That is now gone. Also, we have our materials here. We can delete that under characters as materials. You can delete that as well. We're not going to be using that anymore. Right click on characters and do a fix up redirectors really quick. That's fine. Now delete textures. That's not going to be used as well. Okay, so now we have it to where it is referring to anything with the custom movement now is using the correct skeleton. But there are some blueprints and things in here for the character that we will need to check. So I'm going to do a quick filter here and find the blueprints. And you see this BP example character. I'm going to right click on that and hit show in folder. And filters, I'm going to reset these filters. You can see here that this example character, this is the default one that came with the system, and we don't want to use that at all. We're actually going to be able to delete this. So what I'm going to do first though is find what it's referring to, and it's referring to that custom third-person game mode. So let's see where this is. So under custom movement blueprints etc, there's a BP underscore custom move third-person game. Go ahead and open that up. In here, it's the default pawn class. This is mainly going to be used when you're going in to that sample level that they have. It's not going to be used outside of that, but let's go and change it just because we want to delete those and we want this to still work. So where it says default pawn class, hit the drop down there and choose the mannequin character. That's the ALS character that still has the mesh and all the settings properly set in there. Go and select that for the drop down, hit compile, and then save. Now we can go back down to example character and we'll go and delete these. We can actually delete this whole folder. So select example character. The only thing that was referring to it were those level settings or the map settings. So hit force delete. I have to do it twice here. All right, that is now gone. Let's do a quick fix up redirectors just to be safe. Save all. And now we need to go into some blueprints and actually get things working properly. So to begin with, we're going to go into the ALS blueprint first. So Advanced Locomotion V3, select Blueprints, and then ALS base character. In here, we need to go into the main event graph. You'll see in the left, you can double click that. And from here, we're going to create a new macro first, because there's a macro that is used and it doesn't exist in this ALS based character. So we'll need to create it first. So click where it says macros, hit plus macro. And what we'll want to name this macro is custom movement. So is custom movement. We'll need to go first create a branch. So right click in the center area, type branch, and then drag from the left of that branch onto input. You'll see that it creates the proper connection there. Now on the outputs, we do need to create some things, but to do this really quickly, let's go and just drag from true to outputs and false to outputs. You see it created true and false for us automatically. We do need to add some things because we're not going to see some settings that we need to connect into this yet. We need to go to the add component dropdown and type in search custom movement. You see BP custom movement component. Go and select that. That adds this right here. It adds the component. We'll want to drag that out into the main area. You see it creates a variable for this. Drag off of that and do is custom movement. You'll see a function and it pretty much has a true false result, which is what our branch is looking for. Go ahead and drag that up into the branch. So what this is going to check is if this is custom movement, if it's using it, report true. If it's not, then report false. So what it's going to do is actually follow this path. So this will be kind of a branch in a way. I mean, it's inside of it's a branch, but it'll have one input and two possible paths out based on being true or false. One other thing we need to do first is we need to go to our class settings and we need to add a new interface to this. So hit the drop down where it says add and search for custom movement. So you see custom movement character. Select that, hit compile, and then save. Now we need to go through and configure some of the interface items that we added when under class settings, when we added that interface. There's some things that it put in here. So on before start custom movement, go and double click that. We need to configure this. What we need to do is drag off of this output and search for switch ALS stance. While standing, go ahead and have it go to the standard return node. When it's crouching, you want to uncrouch. So drag off of that and search for uncrouch. And then let's go ahead and click on the return node, hit Control C and Control V that to make a copy of it. And we'll paste that there to have it then return with a different wait time. For the wait time for the uncrouch, so from crouching to uncrouch, put 0.25. So that has time to complete that uncrouch before starting to climb a ladder. Now on the left, you'll see can enter, so can entering custom movement, double click on that. All we need to do here is check this box. Here it says return value. That just needs to return true. We don't need to do anything else. And then get custom movement. Double click that. You'll see here it's looking for an input of custom movement. Just drag that that component that we had created up on the upper left earlier, the BP custom movement component. Drag that to custom movement. It connects it, and that will complete the interfaces. Go ahead and hit compile and save there. Now we'll need to go back in and make some adjustments to ALS itself. First, we'll go by going into the event graph. So you see here event graph, select that. We're on the left-hand side, you can click event graph. You need to find event tick. So in the filter on the left, search for event tick. Double click that. Takes you right to the section if you're looking for it right here on the main event graph. Then we'll need to drag this manage character rotation to the right a little bit more. Where it says then one, drag off of that and search for is custom movement. You see this macro that we'd created earlier, is custom movement. Select that. What we want to do is control, click, and drag the true down to false, because we want it to be where it on the tick, if it's custom movement, it doesn't do all these character rotations, you know, the turn in place and all those things. We don't want that happening and allowing the character to turn when they're climbing up a ladder. Now we'll need to go down farther below all this, right click, and we need to add an event. So event update custom movement. I right clicked and search for event update custom movement, select that. And then drag off of the pin. And I don't know if it's going to find this immediately. So update custom movement. We don't want to do that. I could click this and it would pull that, but let's do this the right way. Let's drag that component out here onto the screen. Let's drag off of that, update custom movement. That gives us one choice. That just makes sure we pick the correct one the first time and nobody has any mistakes with selecting the wrong one. Go ahead and connect delta time to delta time. And it should look something like this. So one thing that we do need to do a little bit differently here is custom movement. This is not quite correct. So see here, I don't have these pins, right? That doesn't have what it's looking for. So I selected the wrong one. I just want to make sure we're doing this correctly the first time. So the event tick, go ahead and delete that. It says is custom movement there. Drag the one from the left here. See, now it doesn't have that. It was looking for the input, so that was the incorrect one. So then connect then one to is custom movement and false to the manage character rotation. So that's the correct one. So now we should be able to compile and we have no errors. Now we'll need to add some events based on the this component here. So right click on the component in the upper left, the BP custom movement component, select add event. And then we want to do on start custom movement. Select that. It's going to add an event call here. And from this, we need to drag off and search for is locally controlled. Should be one option for that. If it is locally controlled, you want to make sure that the server isn't doing this, or one player isn't doing it for another player. Drag off of this and do set ALS rotation mode event. Select that, and we'll choose, and the default should be velocity direction. Go ahead and leave that as it is. And then drag off to the right of that and put set ALS aiming event. One without the multicast or the server. And then leave that unchecked. So when you start doing custom movement, so AKA trying to climb a ladder, it makes, first of all, it checks that you are the one controlling it in the code. It then makes it so that the camera rotation is done velocity style. So you can kind of see around the character climbing up the ladder. And then it makes sure you don't have ALS aiming turned on, which interferes with it. You need to add another one. So right click on that custom movement component, put add event, and do end on end custom movement. From this, we're going to be doing another check for is locally controlled. Then we need to get the actor rotation, but first let's drag off of true and do a set for set character rotation. So under rotation system, you'll see set character rotation, select that. Then for this rotation, we need to drag off of that to the left and to get actor rotation. Select that and it should look something like this. You can leave interp rotation unchecked and the speed at 0. So that's what it'll look like when you're done. Now we need to go to the input and outputs for the character movement. So with ALS, this is, so you can search for forward, back. And you'll have this action here. Go ahead and put for the input axis, move forward, back. Double click that. You'll see the movement input. We'll want to drag that a little bit to the left. Actually, what we can do is just, let's make the comment box bigger. We'll drag the comment box a little bit to the left. And then we will drag the input event and the set to the left. And what we'll do is drag this is custom movement right after that. And then we'll drag from the set to the beginning of is custom movement. And then from false, we want that to go to the normal movement input. We're going to need a little more space. Let's go ahead and move this out because we need to go up and down here a little bit more. So now we can drag this down. I'm going to move the left and right. We'll be getting to that in a minute. Just move that down. Now up here, we need to drag the component. So on the upper left, you'll see that component. Drag it out here first. From this, drag off the pin and do add custom movement input up. We want. And connect from true to that. The input axis value needs to be connected. So drag from axis value to the axis value input. You can double click on the line and straighten out those pins if you'd like. And then I will straighten these out. There we go. We need to do something very similar for the left and right as well. To do this, we will, first of all, we have these in the correct position probably for the first two boxes. Drag this player movement input down to the lower right, kind of similar to where the other one is as far as position. And then we're going to be doing this exact same thing. So we'll do is custom movement, go and drag that from the left and then connect the set to the beginning of that. And then from true, we're going to be doing something similar, but not the input up. We're going to be doing the one that says right. So go ahead and drag the component from the left back onto the screen. Drag from that to add custom movement right. You want to connect true to the beginning pin of that. There we go. And we want false to go down to the player movement input. There we go. So it should look something like this, but you do need to make sure that you also connect up this axis value. So drag off of that to axis value. And then you can straighten up the pins however you like. So it should end up looking something like this. Now we need to make some adjustments to jump. Let me go ahead and move this up a little bit. Scroll down and you'll see jump action. Let's drag this out to the left as well because we're going to be adding some things to this. First of all, we need to do a check for is custom movement. So drag up the comment box, make it so it's bigger up top. And then from pressed, drag off and do is custom movement. And you'll see this one that says custom movement and then is custom movement. Go and select that. Now, see, but that did the wrong one. I'm just going to do a quick test here. Is custom movement. Under utilities, that's the correct one. Or if it seems to be wrong, you can always drag off from the left. So what we'll want to do is put that between the ALS stance change. And we need to make sure that that is actually going into false. So control click and drag from false. You want that going to the ALS stance. Then from true, we're going to be doing an exit custom movement, but we need that component reference first. So go and drag that from the left and out, and then drag from that to exit custom movement. And then drag from true, beginning of that. The rest of this here will be the same. We have all of these existing things that are exactly as they were in ALS. So the main things that we did is a check here for is custom movement. If so, then we're going to exit. You pretty much get off the ladder when you hit the space bar or you hit jump, whatever your jump key is. Now, when we crouch, we need to do something a little bit different. So we need to go to the stance. So ALS refers to crouch as the ALS stance action. Drag the comment box just a little bit to the left on that. Drag the stance event to the left. From pressed, we're going to do is custom movement. Make sure you do the one under utilities as we discovered. And then control click and drag from true to false. So that will look exactly the same. And then you can please a little bit closer so it's not taking as much room. Now when you right click, so we need the aim action to be a little bit different. If you scroll down a little bit more, you'll see here aim. You need to choose on here to check for custom movement. So first what we'll need to do is drag out to the left on the comment box, drag that aim event out and drag from pressed. Search for is custom movement. Select the one under utilities. And then control click and drag down to false. We're going to do the exact same thing. So drag from released is custom movement from false into the ALS aiming event. So this is just going to make sure that you aren't climbing up a ladder to be able to right click and aim and affect the character in that way. Now you also might have these stances. Personally, I don't use these, but if you do, switching to the two different stances, we'll add these really quick. So drag those to the left. When we need 2 copies of that is custom movement, you can either right click and find it, or you can drag them out there really quickly. Drag from pressed into the beginning of those, and then from false into the inputs. So it's not going to let you change your rotation unless you are not climbing a ladder. Next one is the ragdoll. I have that currently disabled, but I'll add it to this. So you would have an event here. We need this custom event. And then from false to the beginning of that. So you have your custom event connecting into this, or the input action, I'm sorry, into this, and then from false into the ALS movement mode. I have my ragdoll turned off. Now the camera action. So this is, for me, the V key. I also have this disabled, but you'll have input action camera. You can see what it looks like. It'll be this. What we do is to drag out 2 custom movements. Drag from pressed into is custom movement and released into another is custom movement. And just drag the falses into each of those. There you go. So it should look something like that. Now we need to go into the anim BP because there's a few changes that we're going to be doing in there. So go back to the file browser and you'll see under Advanced Locomotion V3, characters, mannequin, and then your mannequin anim BP. And what we want to do in here is, first of all, we'll be in the anim graph. So double click that on the left. And then this final animation pose, we're going to add something in between. So drag that out to the right a little bit. You need to right click in the area between and put sub anim instance. Select that. And then we need to, once it's selected, go to the upper right. You see the instance class. Hit that drop down and go ahead and choose the custom movement. So ABP custom movement. You can go now connect those to each other at the moment. We're going to need to add a slot, but to do this, so hit the drag out from there, put slot. You can choose the default slot initially. Go ahead and connect that to the final result. But we need to change this. So once you've selected that, go to the upper right, hit the drop down, and you will see custom movement here. If you don't, you need to go to your main scene, go to content, and do a search for AM climbing, enter, top. Double click that. See this here. If you go into this, it should then register it. We'll go ahead and close that for now. And now you should be able to go back to the NMBP, select the drop down, and choose custom movement. Make a quick comment on here just to make it clear what we're doing. Highlight those two, drag over them, and hit C. We'll just call this custom movement. Now we need to go back to the event graph here in the NMB. Actually, this one is going to be for the IK, because we need to make it so that the IK is turned off when we're climbing up a ladder, because that doesn't operate correctly. Go ahead, compile and save. Go to your main map here. Go to the Advanced Locomotion V3, and then Characters, Mannequin. Clear any filters you may have, and you'll see the Mannequin IK NMBP. Let's open that up. You need to make sure you're in the event graph, so double click that on the left. And where we'll be adding this is between this is valid and this switch on ALS movement mode. So to begin with, we need to drag that comment, the update every frame comment box to the right some. Highlight all of those boxes, the first three, and then the next one is the switch. Drag those to the right. You can also move the ALS movement mode variable to the right. From is valid, let's drag off and search for sequence. From then one, we're going to drag down. We're going to do an is valid. Make sure it's the one with the white question mark. And we need to get the reference for the ALS-based character. So on the left here, you could do ALS-based character. If you search for ALS, you'll see that ALS-based character reference. Select that, drag out, and do a get. Now we need to drag off of that and do a get BP custom movement. You see at the very bottom, the BP custom movement component. Select that. And then this drags into the is valid. It's going to be make sure that you do have a custom movement component added to the character first. And then if it is, let's go ahead and drag off of this component and do a is custom movement. That's a function that you want to do, the is custom movement function. It's going to verify that it is custom movement. And then if it is, drag off of is valid. Let's do a branch. Now you need to drag that return value into the branch. So if it is custom movement, let's do from true. Let's set the enable put IK. That's now going to be false. So if it's custom movement, the IK inside of this, which is this file, gets linked in the mesh for having IK work. So it will automatically, whenever you're using custom movement, disable IK for the feet. So that'll make the movements go correctly. Let's go ahead and save this. And that pretty much completes the implementation. So now what we want to do is to actually test this. I want you to go to the custom movement folder and then blueprints and zone. Under there, you'll see the different types of holds and ladders that they have for this. I want to show you what I've done to the hold, for example, in my example, so that you can see how I was able to get this type of an effect. If you look, I put on there a sort of wooden, not ladder, but something that's kind of stuck in the side of the cliff. And then I put rocks for the grab points. So first, let's open up the BP zone holds. Click static mesh in the upper left. You'll see that I changed mine to pebble. If you have a rock or some sort of a shape that you want to be the grab point for the climbing system, you can put that here. And then you'll want to make sure that it's the proper size. So first, let's go to the viewport. And you can adjust the scale of the mesh to make it so that it matches in the world the right size. But you could put any kind of object that matches, maybe if you're climbing up rock or something like that. You could create multiple zone holds. You could make copies of this blueprint or childs of this blueprint. That mainly the difference is that it does different objects. So if you want to have a list of different holds, you could create different child blueprints. We'll do that really quick. You open it, and then it would allow you to put a custom mesh for that object. It would still have all the rest of the properties. So here is that hold. As you see, I put in a rock here. And then I want to go to the event graph on the left and then go to event begin play. And I'll show you something else I did to make this a little bit more unique. You'll notice that all of the holds in the scene, the rocks don't look like they're all identical. If you had more unique shape too, it would do it differently. But you'll notice if you look closely that all these rocks aren't facing the exact same direction. And that is because in the zone holds, I went through and I did a reference for the static mesh. I dragged it out there. I dragged off of that and did a set relative rotation. And then I do a random rotator. So I checked roll and it will spin on the beginning each and every single one of those holds to a random direction. And this helps it to where it just doesn't look like it's the same thing everywhere. You could, depending on the shape of your rock, they would look quite different. So that's primarily what I did there. And then for the ladder, you can see that it when you start out with, if you're looking at yours, they're just kind of green. It's a green type of bar. So I went through and actually switched it so that it is a piece of wood, because this is this for me matches the level that I'm kind of working in a little bit more. And let's see if I can find my static mesh here. So if you go to your construction script, you can double click that on the left. You'll see at the very end it says set static mesh. Right now this will be set to that kind of green looking material. I put in here the cave wood. And one thing, and here it's actually adding it to the world. Here it's setting what the mesh is, because this isn't like the handholds and it's the same number. You can say, I want to have 6 rungs. I want to have 7 rungs. Another thing that I did for this particular one, and you may want to make a copy and not have, have this be your own unique one. But I set it so that it had a random float in range of 90 degrees to 0 to 90 degrees for the roll. So it kind of spins it. So it looks different in the world. They don't all look the same, even though it's the same object. And then I do a -5 to a 5 degree pitch change to make it so, actually we can look at it here in the viewport, so that they're not all identical as far as the way that they're kind of spun this way. So that is something that you could do if you want to. And then I set the scale of the object here, depending on what mesh you're adding to it. That's how I set it to where it matched kind of what I was wanting for this ladder. But you could put whatever you want in here and kind of create this. You then drag out, so this one is a zone ladder, and you can drag that out into the world, and it will go through, and depending on how many rungs you have, you can say I want to have however many rungs going up, and it will show that. It'll continue growing upward and adding rungs that you can then climb. And so you can set that wherever you like. One thing that I did do to make this a little bit different is I disabled the collision check on the character when you're climbing a ladder. Now, this is something that you will probably want to do, because as you're climbing in, it depending on how close the rung is to whatever you're climbing up, it does a weird movement with the camera. So the setting that we're going to need to look at, first I'll show you in the character. Let's look at, in the base character, you have the spring arm, the TP spring arm. This collision test is causing an issue during climbing. So we need to enable and disable that during the process of actually climbing. So let's first, we have is custom movement. I'm going to check for references of that. Let's see where all that is. So first of all, the event tick is custom movement. This is going to be running every second. So this would be one way of disabling that. But I really don't like putting things in event tick because it does it constantly. I mean, it's just all the time. You would be setting that variable in the character and it could get messy. A search for where it enters and where it exits custom movement. So here in the event graph, look at these two that we have here. We have on start custom movement and on end custom movement. This would be the perfect place to enter this information because as soon as we start climbing, we could disable it. And as soon as we end climbing, we can enable the collision again so that it still doesn't let you put the camera into this ground and things as you maybe you ragdoll or something. You don't want to allow the camera to go into the dirt and the rocks and everything else. So let's do it here to where we'll just drag out this TP spring arm. We want it right here. And we want to set collision. So do collision test. Here we want it off when we're entering custom movement. Select both of those. I'm going to Control C and Control V it at the bottom. And we will turn it back on when we exit. So now we should go ahead and make sure that do any weird things as we climb up. Another way I can test this. See how it lets me, so it's letting me spin all the way around the character. So next what we'll need to do is limit the amount of rotation that you can do while climbing a ladder. So you can't do this. We'll limit the rotation around the character like 45 degrees while you're climbing. And I think that'll give you a more natural feel of climbing up a ladder. Go ahead and start on that. To begin, we're going to need to use the camera manager. So I set up a little test so that you could see what the current rotation limits are on the camera. And you see up here, it's a -90 and currently not forcing you to change that or anything. It gives you full rotation access when you are when you're on here. But what we want to do is make it so that that doesn't have as much freedom during that process. So to do this, we need to use the camera manager. So let's do get player camera manager. I'm going to put it here right below this collision test. And then we need to do some sets. So the first thing we want to set is the view pitch max. We're going to be setting the view pitch max, and the yaw. We'll be doing those two. So get sets for these. Connect it up. And this first one we're going to do is 45 degrees. Now, I did some testing to kind of figure this out, but if for some reason this seems off, you can play with these numbers, but these are the ones that worked for me with default settings. So I'm going to now drag off and we will do a view pitch min. We're setting the max and the min right here. And this one is going to be -45 degrees. Now we need to drag off another time for view yaw max. We want to set that. Go ahead and start connecting all these up. One will be at 0. We'll keep that there. And then we'll drag off again and do view yaw min. I'm going to set that. Okay, so these are the settings that we're going to, but the problem is when we get back off, we want to go back to the normal settings. So first, just so you can see what those are, what I did here was I did the get player manager, camera manager. I did a get on each of these inputs. I did an append, which I like to do if I'm going to need information that labels it for a string. So I did a get, pin, pitch, min, and then it has the value here. What I do is I go into something like Notepad and I get a return. So I make 2 lines and then I copy those 2 lines and then I paste that before this, and it gives me a new line on this. There may be another way to do it, but that's how I do it in here. And just so you can see what this ends up doing, didn't notice it before, it gives me those values. So I took a little screenshot of this, but you could remember those. And now what we're going to do is let's copy all these, paste them down below, connect them up, and then we need to set those values that were there before. But first, let's do the view pitch max, and this is 89.9000002, and then the view pitch min is 89.9000002. So the min is negative, was at the beginning, and the max is a positive 89. Now it may round these, it rounded them for me, but that should be okay. And then the view yaw max is 359.998993. Then the view yaw min is 0. So what we want to do is let's double check these numbers up top. So it's 45, negative 45, 0, and then negative 135. On the bottom, it's 89.900. It ended up being 0.00015. And then there's the negative of that, and then the 359 dot and all the numbers, and then 0. So let's go and compile and save this. Now, there's going to be something that doesn't work right, but I'll show you a fix here right after we do this. See, now you can see I can only go this far. I mean, you could tweak those numbers to make it so you can see more or less, but this has limited the amount of camera angle that I can do. And then as soon as I get off the ladder, I can spin around again. Now you'll notice that it's not turning the character like it's supposed to, so it broke something with that. It did enable the collision check. As you see, I can't go on the ground now. It's making the camera go towards the player as I go along the ground, but it's not rotating the character. One thing that fixes this, quick right click, and now it works again. So what we can do to kind of get around this is let's just do a drag off and do a set ALS rotation mode event. And we'll just set this, we'll reset the looking direction right after we get off the ladder. Now let's go ahead and give that a shot and let's see if that seems to be any better. There we go. So we have that on the ladder. Let's get off and let's see if it feels correct. All right, you can see it's rotating the character correctly and feels just like it did before. To wrap this up, I want to go through and just look at how you manipulate these holds. First of all, the ladder. Let's just look at those settings very quickly. You can see the step count here, and that is just how many rungs there are in the ladder. So if you raise it 16, you can see it adds one at the end. If I go 14, that's pretty close to the end. And let's see if that allows me to climb up and over. You can see, I mean, it worked, but that's where you'd want to look at maybe the beginning. We don't need to rung that far. Just raise it up right to the point where the top rung is right near the top of the point that you want to climb out of. So that's the ladders. There are the various different kinds of these ladders. You want to keep in mind that this is the zone ladder, so I can go up the ladder and I can climb back down from the top. There is this ladder from top. It only allows me to enter the ladder from the top. I would not be able to jump on it and climb up the ladder. There's the stretchable zone ladder, and let's go ahead and pull one of those out there so you can see it. On this one, you can set the width of the ladder. So let's say that I want to have this be 3 times as wide. I can do that. The step width margin is the amount that it kind of counts from the outside. So when you step onto the ladder, let's say you're right on the edge here and you want to kind of force them in a little bit. That's where you can set that. Either you can have them start climbing exactly on the edge and it will have the animation be right there, or you can change that margin and force them in towards the center. And then there's this exact same ladder, but from the top. So you can force them to come to the top. What that might be beneficial for is if you want somebody to be able to lower themselves down, but you don't want them to be able to climb back up a certain point. So that would allow you to do an animation for them climbing down, but they wouldn't be able to go and connect right back up and go up the ladder once again. So let's go ahead and place one more and then see if we can get it to extend this. I'm going to correctly have it facing out. Tell it to update near holds. You see it added one right there. So let's now see if we can jump on it. All right, so there's the new hold that we put on. And it lets me climb. It doesn't let me go there because I didn't connect those two. But if I go back around, you can see it lets me connect to all the ones that have the arrows back and forth. So you can do that to kind of create your own climbing system and allow your players to get to certain areas that normally they wouldn't be able to get to. Of course, you could go in and add your own climbing animations and things like that. And I will probably do that in the future. So thank you very much for watching this. I'm going to end this up with a video that our level designer made. And hopefully you enjoy it. Just kind of shows this in work. And thank you once again. I just want to show this beautiful work that they put together for this video. Beautiful scene. I think it came out very well. Perfect scene for climbing.